I see it is you've got two choices. You can either keep pretending like nothing bad's ever gonna happen to you, and then when it does, you're saying, uh-oh, or you can get ahead of what's coming so that when it does, not if, you're ready for it. And you're sitting pretty, sipping on Mai Tais next to the pool, working on that Caribbean suntan, because you got it covered. So folks, it's time for you to learn the truth about money. It's time for you to take back control of your money so that you are ready for what's about to happen. By doing that, you're setting yourself up for absolute success. No matter what comes your way, you're ready for it. And that's what I want for you, and I want to help you with that. So go to chrisnaugle.com and sign up for the Wealth Webinar. We do them every Wednesday at 1 p.m., and you need to be there because it's time.
For over 90 years, we've been crash testing our cars in the tireless pursuit of automotive safety. At Volvo, safety's been first since 1927. We've saved millions of lives with the invention of the three-point seatbelt in 1959. At Volvo, we've made driving safer for you and them. Visit safety.finleyvolvo.com to learn more.
So they say if you give a man a gun, he'll rob a bank. But if you give a man a bank, he'll rob everybody. The good news for you is Private Money Club runs solely on peer-to-peer relationships, which means no banks allowed. So finally, there's a community for real estate entrepreneurs where it is truly a win-win solution. This community is a place where you can connect with other lenders and other borrowers, and the end result's massive growth for you. You get to build your real estate empire, and you get to do it solving other people's problems. So if that sounds like a place you want to be, well then join us. Go to privatemoneyclub.com/Kelly. And if you want $500 off, just add the code Kelly500 and I'll knock $500 off the premier membership. We'll see you on the inside.
Welcome to the Kelly Cardenas podcast, where attitude is everything. Today's show, I've been very, very, very excited about and honored to be able to have this young man on the show. I was just telling one of my friends, it's incredible. His story is unbelievable. All your excuses are probably going to flow out the door today, because if this man can do what he's done and turn his life into what he has, then you have no excuse in your entire life. He served 26 years in federal prison, and during that time, he had an 84-year sentence that got reduced and got out after, I can say, only 26 years. And he turned his life around, and now he's mentoring kids, mentoring people, and helping them not to go down the same road that he has. Just an incredible human being. I got a chance to meet one of his mentees, and pouring life into other people as opposed to turning it into anger. He turned it into a purpose and a passion that is burning inside of his heart, that is giving to the world and shedding light on the world that way. So please welcome to the show, Mr. Eric McKENITH.
Yes, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, Kelly. I'm honored to be here today.
You're so humble, Eric. Can you tell them what you just had to do, which was probably, even with all the challenging things that you've done in your life, you just accomplished one of the most challenging things that a man, especially in a relationship, could ever do. Can you explain what just happened before we start recording?
Oh, wow. I pretty much had to tell my lady to be quiet. But I had to tell her in a great, like the most humblest way I can.
Tell us how. But tell us how, because I know you didn't want that smoke from your lady. So tell us how you actually accomplished this feat, because this is an actionable item that everyone out there listening, this is going to be one of the major takeaways of today's show, is how to tell your woman to be quiet and her not punch you in the face.
First of all, you got to say sorry. Before you even say it, you got to say sorry. That's the key. Because once you say sorry, then she knows, okay, he's not coming with any ill intent. He's not telling me what to do, but it's the reason behind him saying, baby, please be quiet, or tone it down just a little bit.
And for those of you watching, you got to see, well, number one, smash the subscribe button. That's what you need to do. But Eric, if you see his face, you know. And when I told him, I was like, Eric, it's echoing a little bit. I can hear you, lady. I was like, I'm going to ask you to do something that's going to be very tough, and she's probably going to punch you. And this contrite spirit came over you, and then you said sorry to start off. That was genius. Absolute genius. I've never heard this before. You apologized, and it just diffused, and she was like, okay, cool. And then you followed it up with a compliment too, Eric. Which was
and you know what's ironic about that is like, if we had that approach just in life, dealing with people in general, then it'll alleviate a lot of problems or situations. You know, a lot of times when I'm out and about, you know, I practice common courtesy first and foremost. And I always come with the humble approach because, you know, I don't want no smoke for one. And two, it's like I am not trying to make anyone feel offensive or offended by me asking them to do something. Even if it's like, can you move over for a minute because I'm trying to get to this, you know, soda machines, for the lack of a better word. But, you know, so it's just about just having that common courtesy and just really learning how to just deal with other human beings, especially in this day of time.
Well, it's incredible too, Eric, because this is what I would call the new Eric, and this new like there was a turning point for you. But let's go back to 15-year-old Eric when Eric starts to get into the system. Give us some background in this, because there was a day when the soda machine person standing at the soda machine probably would have caught a bad one, and then you would have got the soda, and they would have went home very sad. But can you take us back to that time and give us some background on this story?
Well, I would probably got the soda on them. You know? And I don't never like to, you know, glamorize my past. But my past, my upbringing was something that I became a product of my environment. And you know, I'm an only child to a single mother, and I used the excuse that, you know, I'm gonna go hang out with these guys I know I'm supposed to be hanging out with because I didn't have any siblings, and that was my excuse. And growing up, I was always a good kid. I was spoiled. I was a mama's boy and everything. However, once I took to the streets and started hanging around a certain group of guys, I became what they were. And I practiced. I had to practice being, um, I guess, a menace to society. I had to practice being a thug, a gang member. And I became good at it. But that wasn't Eric, you know, and I took on the name of Lil Fishbone, and that was my gang name. And I did things that gang members did, like vandalize the community, terrorized my community, and really I helped destroy my community, something that I'm not proud of, you know. And it all started at 15 years old, and no longer than 2 3 months after I became this gang member, I found myself going away to juvenile hall for an attempted murder. And this was not even 3 months after I started gang banging. Because back then, in order to be a part of a gang, you had to put in work. And I put in work, and I ended up going to jail for it. You know, and that cost me 2.5, almost 2.5 years of my life at 15 years old.
Wow. So let's do this. I like to have a glossary, right? So when we're talking in the financial world, there's going to be terms that you use. In the real estate world, there's terms that you use. On today's show, I want to have a glossary of these things. So when you just used a term, which was put in work. Some people out there were like, oh, wow, he got up at 9 and went to his job. No. Putting in work means a little something different. Can you break this down? And as we go through, and there's terms that we'll use, I want people to understand the gravity of what it is that we are talking about. Because at 15 years old, when you grow up a mama's boy, and then you get connected with some guys, you put in work, and then 2 years, then you go away for 2 years.
Yeah.
Define that putting in work.
Well, putting in work is where you have to do something to prove that you belong in that game, whether it's fighting opposing gang members or stabbing opposing gang members or even shooting opposing gang members. And at 15 years old, I ended up shooting at some opposing gang members, and they weren't hit. However, at that time, they charged me with attempted murder because it was an attempt on someone's life based on the projectile of the bullets and where they hit. And, if it was 2 inches to the left, it might have been in the head. If it was an inch to the right, it might have been in the chest. So that's how they determine whether or not attempted murder. But at that time, I was in juvenile court, but they bounded me over to adult court at 15 years old. So when I got to adult court, they reduced the charges to assault with a firearm and allowed me to plead out to 3 years in adult court. But I was still able to do my time in a juvenile facility.
What's going through your head? What's going through your head, Eric, when, okay, take us to the first part of it when you get connected at 15 years old. Up until this point, you've seen it. It's around the neighborhood. You grew up in South Central Los Angeles, in East South Central Los Angeles. And you have seen things happen. But at 15, what clicks where you say, okay, cool, this is the lifestyle I'm going with?
I would just say that you become infatuated not by the violence of everything, but then you see guys, they got the money, they got the fancy cars, the low riders, all the girls. So you become infatuated by that. But then when you involve yourself into that, then you find out the different levels of the game. That you can't just get this and just hang out without putting in work, without going shooting at somebody, without fighting, without representing the neighborhood. So at 15 years old, I was just really fascinated by the women and all of that stuff. But when I became a gang member, I knew that if I didn't put in work, this wasn't gonna last long. Work would be put in on me. So it's a catch-22. When you involve yourself in them type of environments, they got what you get disciplined by the homies if you don't put in work. No, they're not going to shoot you, but you're going to have to fight every day. They're going to jump on you. You don't put in work, you're going to be considered a buster, which is somebody that's somebody just soft. Somebody that don't want that smoke, don't want that drama. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't never want to be labeled as a buster or nobody or as someone who wasn't down for my neighborhood.
So Eric, how often in this process, and when you get into 15 and you say you're putting in work, how often do you have to put in work to continue to prove? Is it ongoing?
Well, yeah, no. Like you put in enough work, you're gonna get that reputation as okay, the homie down for the hood, But unfortunately, you got some guys within that environment that get off by putting in work. They want to put in work. That's all they live for is putting in work. I wasn't never that guy that lived for it. I always felt, and this is crazy, but I always felt guilty every time I did something I had no business doing. Because naturally that wasn't me. That wasn't my heart. That wasn't my spirit. But I practiced doing those things so that I can fit in. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. So 15 years old, 2 or 3 months into the gang life, you go away for 2 years. Take us to the courtroom. Your mom is probably there in the courtroom.
Yes.
What are you going through emotionally when you look over at your mom and you know that you're going away for 2 years and you're not going to see your mama? What's going through your mind? What's going through your heart?
Well, at that time, I was still naive. And I was like, I was selfish because I really didn't care what was going on in my mom's head at that time because I didn't really realize or wasn't aware of the effect that my situation really was having on her. When you're 15, you're not mature enough to know the impact that your decisions have on your family members, especially your mom. Yes, she's gonna miss you, but you figure she's gonna make it through. She's gonna be all right. You know, I'm mostly focused on at that time is okay. I gotta go sit. I had already been down 10 months fighting the case, so I'm calculating. When I took the 3 years, I'm calculating in my mind. Okay, I'm only gonna have to do about 10 more months, maybe 18 more months tops. So at that time, it's like okay, it beats the 12 years that they were talking about in the beginning. So that's all I'm thinking. Okay, I'm finna go here, and this is where the young, immature mind comes from, because now you're thinking, I'm finna go in here, I'm finna put in work for the hood, and YA. YA is our youth authority, which is a prison for young offenders. So now it's like I gotta set my mind and program my mind to go in here and represent the hood, because once again, I don't want to be a buster. I don't want nobody to ever think that I don't represent my neighborhood. So that's a whole different level of the game as well.
Take us to the mentality of your first day in, when you go, and even maybe the ride there. What's going through your mind, and what are some of the things that you had to become aware of when you went in right away?
When I went to YA, or
when you went to YA? Yeah, when you went to YA.
Oh, so I've been hearing about stories in YA. So it was one of those things where it's on site. Like it's crazy now how that gang culture, and even being incarcerated, it breeds gladiators, that gladiator mentality. So when I went in that first day, it's like it's on sight. If I see an enemy, he hit me up, he's from the opposing neighborhood, it's on sight. We're gonna fight. No questions asked, we're fighting. And that's how I had to program my mind in order to survive, and this is a juvenile facility. But that YA breeds monsters, and I hate to say it, it breeds monsters, young monsters, because there's no rehabilitation. You're going in there, everybody there is gang banging, gang related, and you're fighting daily. So that was my mindset.
Well, and Eric, you obviously you couldn't have understood at that time that these 2 years that you're thinking, well, by the time I get to court and they sentence me, I've already put in 10 months. So I got about 18 months to go. And what you're thinking in your mind at that juvenile side is like, okay, cool, I can make this happen. Little did you know that those actions would lead to 26 years in federal prison.
No, and that's another thing, is like it's a cycle, and it's grooming you. Like school, junior high school prepares you for high school. High school prepares you for college. And the system is like that. Juvenile hall prepared me for state prison, because I went to state prison first. Unbeknownst to me, when I got out of YA, when I was violated, instead of sending me back to juvenile facility, they sent me straight to state prison, because I was convicted in adult court. This is what I didn't know when I took my deal. So at that time, I had what you call a YA number, and I already had my state prison number, all in that same day when I was sentenced in adult court. So when I violated my YA parole, they sent me straight to prison, Chino, at the age of 18 years old.
Oh my gosh. Tell us the first day of Chino at 18 years old. You're, when you're talking about, you don't want to be seen as a person who's soft, but it's a whole nother level when you go into Chino. Take us there, set the stage, because most of the people that are listening or watching haven't experienced this, And a lot of times the only thing that they know about it is what they see on TV, which is a lot of times not a good depiction of it. Take us there from the mind and heart of an 18-year-old walking into Chino on the first day.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was nervous because I heard a lot of stories about Chino. I heard a lot of stories because now I'm with grown men, some of them lifers, and it's like, man, what have I gotten myself into? But again, I had to put on that face, that mask, and even though I was nervous, I couldn't let anyone know that I was nervous. So once again, it's like psyching yourself up. Like when you psyching yourself up for a football game, how they get pumped up, I had to do that time in and time out. And when I first went to Chino, it was a tier with 3 levels. And I remember saying to myself, I hope they don't put me on that third level because I would hate to get tossed off of it, because I was only like probably a buck 30 at the most in weight, you know. And so I went in Chino, and one thing about it is that when you're gang related, the homies gonna test you when you first get there, but when they realize that you representing, then you good because I'm affiliated. So there were homies there, and after being tested, they got what you call somebody hit you up, and you got to tell them where you from, and you can't back down. And I refused to back down, and I was good from that point. Yes, I had a couple fights throughout my 18 months in state prison, but I ended up surviving. I made it through. Once again, by the grace of God, because I didn't know God was with me way back then, but He was. And I think that was another reason why I was able to survive state prison. Because I tell you one thing, Kelly, there was one kid that went in there with me. He was 18 years old, like myself. And so it might sound funny to some people, but this is what happens in prison. So one day he gets out the shower. He's in the cell with a gay guy. He gets out the shower with a towel wrapped around him and went into his cell, and he allowed his cellie to horseplay with him. One of his OGs that had been down a life sentence, been down forever, had a life sentence, detected that, seen that weakness in him. The next time I seen him, he had on lipstick and Daisy Dukes on the yard. So it's just that if you don't stand up to the test, if you show any kind of weakness, you can go in one way and come out another way.
Can you talk to about the racial relations in, because this is something that's not talked about, and I was just talking with my friend Joe, and he was saying to me that when he went in, he spent, I think, I can't remember how many years he did, but he said it's almost trained racism when you walk in, because if you're a black man, you're going to this area. If you're a Mexican man, you're going to this area. If you're a white man, you're going to this area. And then the others, you're going to this area. Can you talk about that part? Because again, it's not something that a lot of times is understood, but it's also the survival aspect too. Am I correct?
And racism is real in prison, and you're absolutely right. There's segregation, like guys are divided according to the color of their skin. Even the TV rooms, you got a black TV, you got a white TV, you got a Latino TV, then you got a other TV, and you don't sit at the same table as other races. And it's disheartening because we all human beings, but once again, prison is a place of gladiators, and the respect is real though, because one level of disrespect can get you murdered in prison. You can sit at the wrong table, can get you murdered in prison. You can go watch somebody else TV and turn their TV, get you murdered in prison. Like the simplest things that people think is simple in society will get you murdered in prison, especially when it comes to the color of your skin. And it's hard. That's one of the main issues that's going on in California State Prison. The racial tension that's always on, nonstop. And if you have a partner that you probably was in YA with that you knew that was of another race, it's like you really can't talk to them unless it's on business or politics, you know. And it's sad, man. It's sad.
So Eric, help us with the mentality here, because like when I'm hearing the story, you 18 years old, buck 30, right?
Mhm. Yes,
And
sir.
you go into Chino and you start seeing some stuff that you're like, whoa, I mean, this is nuts. In my head, I'm thinking that is the greatest deterrent from any type of behavior that would get me back into this place when I get out. But that's not the case. It turned into kind of a cycle. Take us to that mentality. And when you get out of Chino, you go back and you go back to the neighborhood. And I mean, do you go right back to it? Do you go right back to the Eric of old?
Yeah. Yeah, because like for a long time, you know, from the age of 15, really before I started game banging, that environment I knew well. It's just I wasn't a part of it until 15. And when you constantly seeing these things and you become programmed. And so while in YA, I know I'm going back to the hood. And I'm going back to the hood now, being that I just got out, fresh out. Now I'm the man because, you know, I done done some time. So that's notoriety. So you go to state prison, you survive state prison, you come home, you're the man. That's notoriety. You know, because people hear, yeah, the homie put in work. He was up there with such and such, blah, 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 and you get that. You get them stripes. Like when you're in the military, they get stripes. You get stripes as a gang member. You know, and the crazy thing about it is that the whole time I was in state prison, I knew that I was gonna get out and I was gonna rob banks. Because right before I went to state prison, I was supposed to go on a bank lick, and I ended up getting violated on some other stuff. So I wasn't ready to change, and I knew that I was going to continue a life of crime even when I was in state prison. Regardless of what I was seeing around me, you get that mentality, it's not me, I survived it. So you get out there like just with an extra chip on your shoulder. Like now I'm fresh out of state prison. Everybody coming to see me like, what's up, big homie? Now I'm becoming a big homie show, slowly but surely because of the work that I put in, you know? And so, like I said, I had already made up my mind that when I got out, I was going to rob banks because that's what my neighborhood was doing. And I was hearing about guys having all this money. So now I'm pumping myself up and programming my mind to get out, and this is what I'm going to do. Instead
Eric,
of
well,
reinventing myself.
Eric, while you're in Chino, while you're doing time, you're thinking about when I get out, I'm gonna rob some banks.
Yes, yes. Because I
Now,
was still,
what was the conversation that your mom, like, because your mom, you were talking with your mom back and forth. I got to meet your mom, and your mom, to get a hug from your mom was such an amazing, and she just had that sparkle in her eye when she looked at you. You hung the moon, but
yes.
she probably wanted to whoop that butt too.
Oh man, and I know that my everything I did now, I know how much it affected her, and that's probably one of my only regrets in regards to just my life is that it affected my mother the most. Now, once again, coming home from state prison, my mindset was not more so on. I didn't think I was going. Well, let's just say this: I didn't want to go back to prison, but I knew the consequences behind what I was getting involved in. And so I'll never forget. One day, my mom was cooking breakfast, and so she never wanted me to sell drugs. She never wanted drugs in her house, and so I told her, "No, I'm cool. I'm not selling drugs, mom." So one day she was like, you know, she called me Boo Boo. She was like, "Boo Boo, you say you don't sell drugs. Well, how you be having all this money, and how you be giving me $1,000 here, $1,000 there?" And I looked at her, I said, "You really want to know?" She was like, "Yeah." And I said, "I'm a bank robber." And the look in her eyes, and she started stuttering. She dropped the spatula and was like, I was like, yeah, I'm a bank robber, Mom. She said, well, why you not on America's Most Wanted? And I told her, I said, I'm too good. And a few weeks after that, that's when the feds came knocking on my door.
Take
Yeah.
us in, take us through this because I mean, this may sound bad, but I'm the king of awful transitions.
Yes.
As a kid, I was so interested. It was fascinating to me, like bank robberies, because you had watched a movie about it and set it up. And I had this whole idea. I said to my buddies when I was a kid, and now obviously I wasn't going to, I didn't do it, but I said like one of us should grow up and get a job in a bank. Another one should grow up and own a security company. Another one should work for the phone company, and one for the electricity company. And then
Yeah.
we could shut off the electricity and then have the alarm go down, and then have the guy working in the bank on the inside. And then we wouldn't talk to each other for 30 years, and then we would come back together, and then we would have this heist. And my friends were like, "Nah, let's just go get some popsicles." But so I'm glad that I went and got popsicles, Eric. But
Yeah, for sure.
okay, but take us in, because when you say robbing banks, I mean you were doing it. You were a bad man. Like, I mean, when I say you were a bad man, you were good at your craft. You were a master at your craft.
Yeah.
Take us there at the beginning and walk us through this thing. How'd you do it, man?
Well, so when I came home, one of my guys was my best friend, the one I spoke on that was murdered in prison. So I was in contact with him all the time when I was in prison. So he was like, "Don't worry about it. When you come home, we're gonna go get this money." I'm like, "All right, cool." So, I think it was a week and a half or maybe 2 weeks. I was out when I went in my first bank, and
Hold on, pump the brakes right there. A week and a half to 2 weeks. I mean, the skillet is still hot at this time, Eric. When you
Yeah.
so a week and a half, 2 weeks. Go.
yeah, and so our first style of bank robberies where we'll just run in with hoodies and jump over the counter with our pillowcases and just move the bank tellers out the way and just load the pillowcases up with the money, and then jump back over the counters, run to the getaway car, and we're gone. And so the more professionals, which was one of my guy, he was most experienced. When we get to the car, we squeeze the money and make sure it don't have no die pack. If it got a die pack, we'd throw it out, or a tracker, we'd throw it out. You know. And I remember one day we had one of our guys with us, and he was like, "What's this?" He passed it to me. I was like, "I don't know," and I passed to my other guy, and he was like, "It's a die pack," and throw it out the window. And no sooner did he throw out the window, it just goes off. And man, if that would have went off in the car, we'd have all been choked out, probably crashed, and we'd have been in jail that day. But so we started off just jumping the counters, and then we graduated to vaults.
How much would you get when you jumped over the counter? And take us into this place. There's two guys. You walk into the bank. Do you already have the ski masks on or the hoodies on when you walk in?
Yeah, we throw the hoodies on as soon as we get in the door. We start yelling, "Get out, get out, get out." Because once people hear that loud commotion, they're gonna get down. We jump over the counters, do what we gotta do, and we're out.
How
You
much?
know,
How much would you get? Like your first one, how much did you
yeah.
get in the pillowcase? And you didn't say just get down. Like what else did you say? Did you say did you add your own like little spice? Did you have your own thing? Like little fishbone said like bam, 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 that's my signature? Or you just said get down?
No, just get down, get down. And if we see somebody hesitating to get down, we'll push them down, like get down.
Okay. All right.
But at this time,
How much in the how much?
It
How much in
varied.
the first one? The first
It
one.
varied. The first one we had got around 30, I think 30,000 split up 3 ways. Each teller, if I'm not mistaken, was probably like 12,000, something like about 12,000, and we hit 3 of them. We got about 30, a little more over 30.
How quickly would you come in and out?
We're trying to be in and out, no more than a minute and a half. We're trying to be in and out, 2 minutes top.
Wow. Okay, so you do this. You see the die pack goes out the window. You're in the car. You're like, wow, that's now we're starting to graduate. It starts out at 30,000. And then what was the next big like jump when you were like, hey, we just hit it big on this one?
We hit for 80, and then it went up to 200. And the whole mindset at that time was we gotta get one for at least a half a million. So that was kind of the drive. And when we didn't get the half a million, we'd be like, we'll go find another one, do our homework, and hope we can get it there. It just became it was, I guess, addictive behavior because you get a rush out of it too. And it was one of them things where it was so easy.
What kind of research are you doing? Like take us into that mind. Like what research, I mean, are you sitting outside the bank and checking how many, I mean, take us through this, Eric.
You definitely got to do your homework. You got to know who the employees are, who the manager is. Definitely had to do our homework, and that was one of my things. I was good at doing homework.
Is this looking them up online, or is this?
No, just staking the bank out, just staking it out, knowing who comes in, and it was early in the morning, so before it even opened, we knew who was opening it, and who was supposed to be there to work that day, and you look at something and you watch it for about a week. The next week we're in.
When did you start getting sloppy? Because when you do it and that tension is huge, the first 30,000 when you go in to do, then it goes to 80, then it goes to 200. And then the reason I'm saying it is because I'm watching the movie play out right now. And as the movie happens, as the 200 comes, then you're like, we're invincible. No one could touch us. And then you start to go to another levels and sometimes something slips. Or am I the wrong director in this movie?
Well, actually, what happened was we was really we was gonna stop robbing banks, and we had came up with an idea that we was gonna ship some marijuana out of state, and so we had our actual getaway driver take the marijuana out of state. So I think where we went wrong was giving this lady too much responsibility, and she ended up getting caught with the marijuana. And end up telling them not only do they sell drugs, but they rob banks to do this. So that was the slip up there, because we never got caught in the act, even though we had some close calls. But and the crazy thing about it, so our getaway driver was a white lady, and so a lot of times the bank robbers, the description was black male, 3 black males. We had 2 close calls where she rolled us right by the police, and they didn't even look her way. That close.
Eric, what is the funniest thing that happens during one of these robberies?
And I don't want to say funny because, like,
hey, we understand, and I know it's a bad thing, but
yeah. And now I empathize for all the victims because I didn't realize how serious victim impact was.
Okay.
And I took a couple courses in prison, and the long-term effect of victims made me really it broke me down because reading a lot of those statements and how certain people, employees, were scared to take their children to school because of some of my threats. Was scared to even work in a place that had money ever again, and that's why I don't want to get into the funniest things because at the end of the day they weren't funny to those people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There was moments that I laughed back in the days with my friends and my co-conspirators, but I definitely don't want to do that.
What about when the interaction between you guys when you're going through? Are you guys completely serious? You and your co-conspirators and your driver or your getaway driver, are you guys completely serious during it and it's all business, or are you guys kind of giving each other kind of the business during the time? Is there banter?
It's business, but at the same time, see my motto, and I'm not just saying this because I'm trying to make it seem like it's right, but my motto was I didn't want to hurt anyone. Didn't want to hurt anyone, especially women. So one of the robberies, one of my guys had ended up hurting a lady, and I snatched him in the middle of the robbery and was like, "What are you doing? Get over there!" And I kneeled down beside her, and I apologized to her for his actions, and I told her, "It's not your fault. We just want the money. Give us the combination, and we're gone." She said she didn't have it. I took her sweater. I wiped her face because she was bleeding, and I told her I was sorry again. That same lady overlooked me in trial, and when she looked at one of my guys, she started just getting hysterical. But she didn't point me out, I guess, because she remembered how genuine I was, and I told her, "I promise you, he's not gonna hurt you no more." That was one thing about me. Even though I was doing wrong, I've always had a great heart, and especially when it came to women and children. You know, that was my philosophy: no women, no kids.
So when you graduated to the vault aspect, how did you get the vaults open?
Combinations. The manager has one half, and an employee has the other. At the
And
time, this was
and
'95.
yeah, so what was the largest hit that you guys ever did?
Oh, we didn't get over that 220.
220.
We didn't. Yeah, we didn't get over that. We was trying to get to a half a million, but we didn't get anything more than 220.
So the bank robberies are happening. You guys go into the marijuana game. You're going to move it across the state. We make the slip up. The woman gets caught. She rats you guys out or lets them know, right? And so you guys go to trial, and this is where you're facing 84 years.
Yes, but prior to them coming to get us, they try to they wanted to catch us in the act, and so they wired her, and it's like uh, 3 times we tried to go out with her, and it seemed like things was happening. We started seeing unmarked cars, and so the last time we went out with her, I was in the bushes getting ready to go in the bank, and I got a call over the walkie-talkie like, "Homie, it ain't good." I'm like, "What do you mean?" "I'm getting ready to go in." He's like, "It's not good. Those cars we seen in the hood, they right on the other side of the building. Them the feds." So I was like, "Come and get me." And once they came and got me, it was the feds in the other parking lot. And when we are going to do trial, they said that they were waiting on me to come in there because they was gonna gun me down if I would have came in there.
Oh my gosh. So you go to trial. Take us inside when they're about to sentence you. And when the sentence comes down, I mean, what are you feeling at this time?
Well, being found guilty was the first thing was like, wow, like because even though we were guilty, they didn't have no one said that I was in the banks other than the getaway driver. No one identified me. It was a couple maybes, but no one could accurately identify me. And at this time, we were going in with suits and no masks, nothing over our face. But that goes back to trauma. A lot of victims are so traumatized that they can't remember. They can't remember faces, So we got found guilty first, and then we stalled. We prolonged our sentence for about 6 months, and then when we finally got sentenced, the judge sentenced us to 968 months. And I looked at my attorney. I was like, "How much time is that?" And he got out his calculator, wrote it on a piece of paper. It was 84 years. And I was like, wow. But at the same time, it was like, that can't be true. And for a long time, I was like, that's not, man, I'm going to be out. And then you go through the appeal process. I'm like, I'm going to win on my appeal because the government did this wrong. That's the first thing we say. Even though we're guilty, we highlight what the government did wrong. So it's like, the government did this wrong. They got to let us go. It's a technicality. Deny. Another appeal. The government did this. They withheld information. They withheld Brady material. Denied. that's when I started to feel like, wow, they really not trying to let us out of prison. Like they're really not trying to let us out, you know. But I kept faith that one day I will be out. Even though I had 84 years, it was something inside me, not knowing what it was then, but something inside of me saying, I'm going to be free one day again.
12 years in, take us there. 12 years in, there's an about face. Take us to that place.
Yes. So I'm sitting in the hole one day and I'm just tired, period. I'm worn down. I lost my best friend. He was murdered. And it was like, something got to give, something got to change, you know? And so I cleaned up my language. That was the first thing I did. A lot of us Afro Americans like using the N word a lot. I stopped that first. I started referring to women as bitches. That was second. Then I started just, just really just reading a lot more, praying and meditating. I started reading a lot of spiritual like books, things, self-help books to just really help me work on my inner self, and I just kept moving forward in that, listening to God more, praying more, and getting just any type of positive words, wisdom that I can get from people. I started doing that, calling people that were more positive mindsets. My auntie was the greatest. Every Sunday I'll call her and she would just tell me she believes in me and I can do and be anything I want to be, that life is not over. Just when it comes to inspiration and those words, she gave it to me. So it became Sundays with my auntie. Remember the book Tuesdays with Murray? My Sundays was with my auntie. And I got so much from her, and I started doing right by people. I started just giving to people, even if I didn't have it to give. If you came and asked me for a soup, here you go. And it just, my character changed, my mindset changed, my heart changed. I was becoming a better man, a better human being, and practicing it as well. And 2018 is when God stepped in and he changed my life. He changed my life through Donald Trump, the First Step Act.
Eric, I want to rewind just a little bit because you said something that most people don't get a chance to have a conversation about. But it was something that you said that you stopped saying as an African American man, as a black man, that you stopped using the N word.
Yes.
How important is that for young black men to understand the implications and impact of using that word, even if they're using it towards each other?
It is very like, and the thing is, it's a whole debate about it being a term of endearment and us taking the word back, but when you look at it, it has nothing but negativity surrounding it. So the energy behind it, and so it's important for young African American men to learn the history behind it. But the sad thing about it, Kelly, is that a lot of their parents are using it. Their household is using it. So when you're surrounded by that so much, that language is hard to get away from. And a lot of times when I'm with my mentees and they refer to me as it, I check them real quick. Like, hold on. I don't care what you call your friends and what you say to other people outside of me, but I'm not your end. Let's get that clear. And you're not an end to me. So it's important for them to know, but it's so far, like it's like a wildfire. That word is just, I heard a pastor use that word not too long ago. So, so I say to that, to each his own, but I'm not using that in my household.
Take us to that 2018 time You mentioned, which act was it?
The First Step Act.
The First Step Act. Now,
Yes.
I saw people when we were at Taking Authority with Mr. James Dixon. Shout out to him. That guy is an absolute revolutionary and incredible human being. One of my best friends now. But I saw people draw back. You were giving your testimony, and you said 2018, and then you said, and it was because of an individual that you got out of prison, and everyone was like, It was amazing because you were willing to talk about something that was maybe a little bit unpopular, but it was connected with you. Can you talk about that moment and those kind of things? Because this was huge for me. I noticed that, I don't know if you realized it, but in Atlanta, in that church, the air went out the room for a second.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, a lot of people are uncomfortable with the truth, but it is what it is. I'm not, saying I'm not a Trumper. I didn't vote for him. And the thing is, he was a part of something that changed my life, and however, I always say this too, it was led by Vance Jones and other activists that were fighting mainly for the crack law, and people's been fighting this law for years, way longer prior to Trump. You know, however, it was his Hancock that signed off on it, just like it was Obama's Hancock that signed off on the Obamacare. So, regardless of your opinion about an individual, whose Hancock is on that law that changed something. So that's why I mentioned him, because his Hancock was on there, and that changed my life. That law changed my life.
So when in 2018, when you catch wind of this and you start moving, what starts going through your mind too? I mean, here you for a long time at 15 years old, when we asked you about how did that affect, how was it affecting your mom? You were like, felt selfish. I wasn't really worrying about it. When you go into state prison, you're thinking, when I come out, we're about to get this money and go get these banks handled. So most likely you're not thinking about mama at the time, although you're going to provide for her financially, but you're going to do it through bank robbery.
Yeah.
2018 comes. I got a chance to be with you a couple months ago in Atlanta. I saw the way that you looked at mama. Mama could have told you to get on top of the church and jump off, and you would have jumped off. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
and I see that endearment. I see that love. Take us to there. And I mean, your heart is switching. Your vocabulary is switching. You're surrounding yourself with different people because it was Auntie on Sunday, right?
Yes.
2018, you're about to get out of prison. What starts going through your mind at this time then?
Man, I was grateful of the fact that my mother had survived as long as she did. One thing that broke my heart, where I really started paying close attention to my mother, Kelly, was I had went away because I started off in Lompoc, California, my federal bid, right?
That's where I'm
Yeah.
from. That's where I'm from.
Yeah, I started off at USP Lompoc, and I had ended up getting shipped to USP Marion, which is in Illinois, and I hadn't seen my mother. I was there for almost 7 years, and I hadn't seen my mother that whole duration of time. So when they sent me back to California, which I went to Victorville, California, and the first time I seen my mother after being gone for so long, I seen how much it aged her and how much it was taking a toll on her. And that's when my heart just broke in half. Like, wow, like I'm killing my mother, and my prayer going forward was basically that I just wanted to be out of prison before my mother died, because that was my greatest fear. Her dying while I was in prison. That was my greatest fear. So coming back to 2018, when I got the news and I was able to tell her and she was just elated, it just meant a lot. And even though I had almost 3 more to go, we knew that I was coming home now. At first it was just yeah, I'll be home, mama, don't worry. it was just a thought, a hope, a prayer. But to actually say, "Moms, I'm coming home this date," man, it was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful thing.
Eric, set us up too, because while you're in, you go into 12 years into your sentence, you're in the hole, you're in solitary, and God starts speaking to you. You then start reading. Things start snowballing for you. You want to now help people to not go into the same situation. You want to change your life around. Then 2018 happens. You know that you got 3 years left and you're coming out. That's 2021 that you're going to be released.
Mm-hmm.
Take us to that 2021 though, because you've been in a culture for 26 years. This is more than half your life right now. Even you're what are you 50 years old right now? Are you 49?
I'll be 50 next year. I'm 49. Yes.
So it's more than half of your life. You've lived in a culture that is, if you're an African American man, you stand here. If you're a white man, you stand here. If you're a Mexican, you stand here. These are the things that you do. You have to fight for your neighborhood. You have to fight for your gang. You have to fight for the crew that you're around. It's about fast money. It's about all these things. So you're indoctrinated into all these things. Although God had started to work on you, take us to the time when you get out and the adjustment back to walking up to that soda machine and a Mexican man maybe standing there in your way. And you had 26 years of this over here. How did you adjust?
Well, to be honest with you, the reason why it was so easy to adjust because my heart wasn't prison. You know what I'm saying? My heart was never that. I just had to survive prison. You know? My heart has always been a person, I really care about people. I've always been that way. You know, it's just that I had to adjust to the environment that I was in. So coming back to society where I can be a normal human being and not on savage time was just, it was comfortable. It was easy because this is me. Eric is who I am, not Fishbone. Fishbone is somebody I practice to be. Eric is what people see now, today. So it wasn't that hard. That wasn't a hard thing. But I tell you what was funny, when I first went into the bank to open up an account.
Hold on. Did you go back into a bank that you had robbed?
No, because I'm in Georgia.
Okay,
I'm
all
in
right,
Georgia.
cool. Okay, all right.
But it was weird at first, too. All I kept thinking is, I hope don't nobody come and rob this bank because they going to swear I had something to do with it. Even now, I'm kind of uncomfortable going in there, but the thing is, I got legitimate business. I got accounts going, so if they did come in, they'll see a track record of me banking in that bank, you know?
So Eric, what was one of the hardest things to adjust to though? Like, you know, one of my friends, I was telling you, I think I talked to you about him. His name is Craig Coley. He was in for 39 years. And so he went in at 31, got out at 70. When he got out, you know, cell phones weren't at that time. He got out and, you know, this technology is happening. He sees someone riding bikes down the street and there was like electric bikes and things like that. Like, and he's kind of, you know, kind of freaking out at it. Normal things. Was there things like that for you as far as adjustment in your life and the things that you had to get used to?
Yeah, the cell phone, definitely one of them. When my lady gave me my cell phone fresh in the box and I pulled it out like, okay, like where do we start? And then the passwords for everything, that tripped me out for a minute because at first I was just creating different passwords and she was just like, just stick to one because I'm like, I forgot my password. I'm always hitting forgot password, you know? So it took a minute for me to start. Now I'm starting to just everything on one password. Self-checkout, I was a little apprehensive because I didn't want to look stupid trying to figure it out. So for a long time, I'll go to a long line. The self-checkout is open. I'll go wait in line about 5 or 6 people. But it's just things like that I just didn't want people to just think I was stupid. Like, where have you been all your life? You don't know how to operate this, you know. But then I came to a point to where if I didn't know anything, I would tell someone, "Can you help me with this?"
Wow.
And I started being honest. Like, this is why I don't know. I'm sorry. This is why I don't know. Because some people be like, "You don't know." This is why I don't know. You know. But it took me probably around 90 days to adapt. And I say after that, my girlfriend would look at me and was like, "It don't even seem like you ever been in prison." You know,
Wow.
I don't carry that institutionalized mentality with me. Because some guys, the reason why they become institutionalized is because they check out in regards to the free world. I stayed in communication with my family in the free world. So I never became numb to love and my loved ones, and I never became institutionalized because I was always calling home, writing letters, and reality TV kept me abreast of a lot of stuff too. Times I
So
was able to watch reality.
so when you come back to help the person that hasn't gone through this. I was just talking with my buddy Joe, and he said, Kelly, do you know what it's like to apply for a job and on the resume or on the application it says, have you committed a felony? And he said, do you know what it's like to have to mark yes, but you're contemplating marking yes or no because you know if you mark yes, most likely you're not going to get this position. And I just looked at him and I was like, nah, I haven't. Like, that's not something, I haven't gone through that. What are some of the things that the person that hasn't been in that situation, hasn't been incarcerated, when you come back into society, some of the challenges that you have that most people don't realize that you're going through?
Well, trying to get a job is real. Even though in this day of time, they're more inclined to hire ex-cons at certain businesses. Then you're not going to land the premier job, the job you want. But if you want to work, there are jobs out there for ex-cons. Me, I didn't really have the struggle of signing yes or no because I realized that being that my case was so old and it's a federal case, that the background check only goes back, I think, 5, no more than 8 years. My case happened in 1995. So every job I applied for, I got it. And yes, I marked no because I wanted the job. And I wanted to prove to them that I can do the job. So I worked at LA Fitness.
We just lost Eric there for a second. I think he's going to be back on here in a second, but it is absolutely. Oh, I just lost you for a second there, Eric. So
Yeah.
you were saying LA Fitness. That's where you were at.
LA Fitness, Home Depot, Amazon, and then this is the funny thing. I end up getting a security guard job, a luxury a luxury security guard job at Phipps Plaza, which is one of the high-end
Yep.
plazas here in Georgia.
I
And
know it
then
well.
I transferred over to the Gucci store, right? And I ended up being their best security guard there. When I told them that I was leaving because I was going into trucking business, they wanted me to stay. Not once did they lose anything on my watch. And I wasn't policing, but I knew what to look for. So if I seen somebody that was up to no good, I'll just go stand by them. Like, hey, how you doing today? Make them uncomfortable and they'll leave. And the craziest thing about it is that I was responsible for walking the armor guard to the safe in the back to make sure it didn't happen to him.
How good? I believe that God has a sense of humor.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
And
Yes.
and
Yes.
when you and I were together in Atlanta, and I was talking to Miss Sharon, and Sharon was singing that song, and she did the remix of this song, and I was praising. I had my hands up, and Sharon kept singing, and I was like, she was testing my faith in God.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Can you talk about where God has had a sense of humor and brought things back in like this situation of you
That
walking.
was one of them. Yes, yes, that was one of them. And the thing is, I never did entertain any negative thought there, and I actually just smiled and I thanked God because I am changed. I am a changed man, and I thanked Him for putting me in that position because I passed. I passed. Yes.
Eric, give us the blueprint for staying out of prison.
One, trust your support system. Don't be scared to have a support system. Don't be scared to ask for help when you need help. And always remember where you came from. You know, I remember like yesterday where I came from. I don't share it often, but I know where I came from, and I know that's a place I'd never want to go back. So what keeps me focused is just that, just remembering those horror stories and making sure that I don't make the mistakes to put me in those positions ever again. It's been slow, it's been a grind, but I rather grind slowly out here doing the right thing than chasing the fast money and end up right back in prison just as fast, you know, because it's quick to get locked up, but it's hard to get out. And I refuse to put myself in that position ever again.
Eric, if we had 25 kids that are in, well, let's call it, I mean, whether it be South Central or whether it be in a neighborhood there in Atlanta or a neighborhood in Memphis or a neighborhood in Chicago, and they're looking and they're not seeing their dad around. They're seeing the drug dealer on the corner with the nice car, with the chains, with the ladies, with the money. You got those 25 kids. You got a minute and a half with them, and then they're going back. What do you say to them?
That you are much greater than you believe you are right now, and that you can have and accomplish anything in your life if you just apply yourself, and then I'll quickly remind them that, prison is real, the cemetery is real, and it's only two things that happen when you're in that type of environment or living that type of lifestyle, and that's death or prison. Only a few are lucky enough to make it out or blessed enough to make it out. I'm blessed. I made it out.
Why do you believe that you made it out?
Because my heart, I believe that God knows each and every one of our hearts. And even though I've done wrong in my past, I was never a savage. I was never cold-hearted, stone-hearted, and God knows that. Even when I was robbing banks, I used to go through the neighborhood, women that had all the kids, them houses got all the babies and no food in the refrigerator, and I give the mother of the house some money, go buy some food. I give the kids some money. So even though I was doing wrong, I was always doing something right, you know.
What about with your message now? What do you want the world to know? Like, because I think that a lot of times people say that there's a niche, like you have to have a niche and you have to stay in that niche. I believe, Eric, that your message is for so many people on so many different levels. And when I look at it, it's not just the kid who's at risk in the neighborhood. It's the person who is doing amazing in their business, but has the opportunity to do just a little bit wrong to make a lot more money. So what message do you want the world to know? What is Eric's legacy?
My legacy, I just want the world to know, like, there is a such thing as redemption. Um, People can change. You can't always take a person's past to define their future. And I just want them to know that, I'm living proof. I'm an example that you can come from, the roughest background, prison, gang banging on the streets, and you can become a business person. You can become a man who now not destroys the community, but looks forward to building the community. And that's what I'm doing out here, man. I call it speaking truth to the youth because I wasn't told the truth when I was 15 years old. I was told the BS. So what I'm doing with these young men is I'm telling them the consequences behind the lifestyle that they're living, and I'm being honest with them. It's not worth it. It's not.
What about the parallels? And this has always fascinated me. I'm a very curious guy. That's what I've lived my whole life as a curious kid. There are parallels between a successful drug dealer or criminal and doing well in a regular business. There are so many parallels when I look at these things, right? I always joke and say that, on Friday, the movie Friday, there are so many business lessons in there, and I learned negotiation, right? From Ezel in the liquor store, right?
Yeah.
And so you learn negotiation there. You learned, don't get high off your own supply from Smokey. You learn all these different aspects, and I joke about it, but it's serious. What are some of the principle-based things that you learned on the street in the gang that you're able to apply now in your very successful business that you're running now, Eric? Because you're doing incredible in your life, and you're not only doing that, but you're giving a hand up to so many other people. But what are some of the principle-based things that are interchangeable, that if a person said, if I just turn my life or my focus from maybe selling the drugs or doing this thing, I could actually apply that same principle in this, and it would work the same?
Oh, absolutely. Just sales, period. Like, if you were a good drug dealer, you can be a great salesman. You know what I'm saying? Just drug dealers used to stack their money a lot. You can stack your money in the bank now and let it grow, and you can flip that money by investing in stocks, investing in other things. Like, it's other ways to flip your money than in the drug trade, you know? So I would say that, and just doing good business, because even drug dealers that done good business got all the business. So do good business. That's one of the rules.
What about the kid that's in it right now and they're making fast money? So we talked to the kids, the 25 kids that were, on the cusp. But let's talk to the kid that's in it, the guy that's in it, that's saying to you, yeah, Eric, that sounds all good and everything, but I ain't going to take 5 years to earn something that I can earn probably tomorrow or this weekend. I'm in it. It's all who I am. It's all I've ever known. And there is no way that I'm going to trade in, being able to make tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in a weekend for something that I have to listen to someone else and show up to work and put in all this hard work that you're saying about that will end up later. What do you say to that person?
I can tell them straight up, like, just as quick as that money come, that's how quick you could be in prison. It's many big time drug dealers that fail and serving life in prison right now. I tell them go to YouTube, check out a few reputable, most known drug dealers, and they need to do a where are they now on this type of stuff too, because it's so many that's in prison with life sentences right now. And they were the mans when they was out. They had everything. But where are they now? They got the same thing that another prisoner have right now, which is a cold bunk and soups in their lockers, and that's it. That's it. So I would definitely challenge them. And it's hard, don't get me wrong. A lot of people, they're not just going to leave the game like that, especially when they up, But all I can do is just let them know the consequences once again, and just tell them, like, man, it happened to me. It happened to so many. It can definitely happen to you.
What are some of the signs that now you can see so clearly because you have mentees? I got a chance to meet one of them. Mm-hmm. And what are the signs that you see that things are starting to slip? Because when you were 15, you really couldn't see it. Then, now that hindsight and looking back, what are some of the signs or red flags that a person or a parent can look at in their child or in a kid that's close, niece, nephew, whatever it is, that would say that's a red flag, they're going down the wrong road?
Yeah, one of the main red flags, if you smell marijuana in your kid's room at 15 years old, then he's going down the wrong road. I had one kid I was teaching, because I teach a curriculum at DeKalb Juvenile Justice Center, and one of my kids, he was 13, and he was mad at his little brother for stealing his weed stash, and his little brother was 12. So you have to really evaluate your children, and you have to know who they're hanging around. And one of the telltale signs is just really their company that they're keeping. You can see it. I think parents just, and I'm not saying all parents, but parents in this era, they are still kids themselves. So they're raising these babies. So they know when their child is doing something they're not supposed to do, because they were just doing it a couple years ago. But it's up to them to check their child on it and really parent their child. They're not parenting their child. They're letting them, and especially when it comes to smoking marijuana or drinking, at least they're doing it in the house. What kind of parenting is that? They shouldn't be doing it at all. But it's a lot you can really look for. The sagging of the pants. You know, I don't think they're more too much into colors no more. I think the color thing then played out, but it's just different things. You just gotta pay attention. You gotta pay attention to your children.
So when you're looking at a mentee, my pops used to say this: son, can we run with the mufflers off? And I would get excited during this time, because then Pop was about to go into, like, he wasn't going to be dad anymore. He wasn't going to be anything. He was just going to be like, yo, I'm about to tell you unfiltered truth, and I don't care how you feel about it right now. This is what the truth is. And he would always ask me permission, though. He would be like, you ready to run with the mufflers off, son? And I'd be like, Pop, let's go. And then he would tell me some crazy stories, and he would tell me about, because, he used a lot of marijuana growing up. He smoked weed a ton, and I would ask him about drugs and stuff like that. And then he would go back into Pops, and he'd be like, boy, you don't need to be asking me that. And then he'd be like, can we run with the mufflers off, son? And I would say, yes, Pop, let's go. So I want to ask you permission to run with the mufflers off real quick.
Yes, sir.
So, Eric, speaking to a mentee, if you didn't have to worry about their feelings, you didn't have to worry about where they came from, or if they're, think in your head, we ain't going to say no names, but think in your head a mentee that you've had, or maybe, and you didn't get a chance to truly run with the mufflers off, what would you say to that kid? Like, if you had that amount of time and you just got to run, and you just, like, you didn't have to worry about their feelings, you didn't have to worry about any of those things, what would you say to that mentee that's sitting in front of you right now?
I would tell them, man, get your shit together, because you're on your way down the wrong path. You're on your way to prison. To be honest with you, I actually seen a mentee of mine that I had to check myself, because if I'm supposed to be your mentor, I shouldn't think or see visions of you going to prison. But I came home and I told my lady, I said, baby, he going to prison. And then that next day, I was at it trying to do all that I can to keep him from not going to prison. So if I had the muffler off, I would just, I guess I really keep the muffler off. Like, when I speak to these mentees, I'm raw and uncut, and I like I said, I speak the truth to them. And when they slipping, I let them know you slipping. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Excuse my language. You slipping. You know what I'm saying? You been smoking? Why? What are you doing? That stuff makes you stupid. It makes you slow. You can't think. So I dig into them when it's time to dig into them, and I tell them really how I feel, because that's one thing about me being able to relate to them, because I was there. That's why mentors like myself, we're most effective, because we've been there and done that. And they respect it coming from us a little more, because I'll talk their language with them too. I talk their language with them, and then challenge them on some, like, look, you ain't more gangster than I was, so let's stop that. Now this, you know what I'm saying? Especially one of my mentees been having a little situation with his moms, and I be up on him. I be like, look, you need to appreciate your moms, because she ain't guaranteed to be here every day or the next day. You know what I'm saying? You got to value her. A lot of people don't even have mothers, and I really go off into them. Then I tell them about my mother, and and really just give them that raw, that real. But I tell them I'm not gonna tolerate it. Your mama call me again, then you're gonna have to deal with me. You call me what you called your mama. So sometimes I have to take that approach with these young men because if you don't, then they'll try to walk over on you. They'll try to manipulate and finesse you if you don't let them know like that's bullshit. Cut it out. Now what's going on?
Eric, how do you know when to keep going with these kids and when to conserve your energy and move on to something else? Because I've noticed a lot of times, and my friend James and I were talking about this. He said when he started to see a different side of life, he said, I just wanted to go back and I wanted to stay in it to be able to show everyone a different side of life. And then he had a time where he was at McDonald's and someone started popping off and he said, hey guys, everything's cool. And that kid stuck a gun in his chest and he was like, do you know who I am? I'm a guy in the community that's helping the community up. And the guy looked at him and said, I don't care who you are. There's some times where a person will dedicate their life to almost saving the unsavable. How do you know the difference?
Honestly, man, I guess it's a feeling, but I'm at a point right now where I'm still new in the community. And so I got a tendency of thinking that I can save or help everybody. And that's not the truth. And I know it's not the truth. So I have to learn, become more aware of those who are able to be saved and those who just not going to get it so that I won't waste my time and my energy. But at this point, I don't know right now. I can't differentiate because I do feel that every individual has some good in them, but it's just about if whether or not they're going to allow that good to outweigh that bad. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know right now on how to just say, all right, he's not worth it because I think every human being is worth it.
Yes. Talk about to the importance of a healthy relationship. You have a phenomenal woman in your life, and you spoke about her. We talked about her early on and how you told her just to be quiet, and you survived, which obviously means that she's a great woman.
Yeah.
But the love of a great woman in your life and to have a phenomenal relationship, I think is one of the greatest bases for any success in any area. It doesn't mean that this stuff is going to be perfect. And when I speak about this stuff, people are like, oh, well, was there, you know that you didn't do right in your life at some point. Of course, I'm a human being. But what I'm saying is I have a wife who absolutely loves me, who lifts me up, who encourages me, and is the amplifier of what I do. You have that in your life. How important is having that relationship as a foundation for everything else?
Oh man, it's very important, because that's that one person that I can really truly be vulnerable with, and that one person who understands not only what I'm going through today, but what I've been through. So whenever you have somebody who understands you, they are more patient with you, because Lord knows that I can be a handful sometimes, especially I had to relearn society. So that was a lot in itself. Some stuff that I was asking her questions about, the regular person would probably be like, you moron, or you idiot, but she understood, you know what I'm saying? And she had the patience. And so you got to have somebody who understands you, because no one's perfect. That's why I always speak.
I
That's
just
why
lost.
Yeah, that's why, my brand is the imperfect gentleman. And because no one's perfect. And the thing is, man, when you have people in your life that know you're not perfect, but they're willing to be there for you and help you become the best person that you can be, not only to them, but to yourself, then that's a win, man. And that's what I have in my life. Someone who really just understands that I'm not perfect, understands that I make mistakes still to today, but they're not the detrimental mistakes. they're mistakes that you're able to rebound from. So and that's what it's all about, man. Someone to love you unconditionally. A lot of people throw that word out there, but true unconditional love, when you find that, then man, it's a win.
When's the last time that you had to check yourself that you're not living in the culture that you had for 26 years? And I'll give you an example. Like, there's times where I remember, I still think of myself as a kid. And it was about 5, 6 years ago. There was a little boy that my daughter had a crush on. And her friend had a crush on him too. Well, he chose the other girl, right? And so my daughter was kind of sad. Well, I volunteer at the school. This was when she was in 3rd grade. I volunteer at school a lot, but I always think of myself as a little kid, like I'm one of them. So I go and volunteer at the school, and we're playing basketball. And this little kid who didn't choose my daughter, was playing basketball. So I went on the opposite team. And this kid was pretty good at basketball. But that day, every one of his shots got swatted. I bodied him up and made sure he didn't score. He didn't dribble nothing. And he looked at me. He was like, "Mr. C, what's going on?" And in my head, I was like, when he said that, I had to check myself to realize that I'm not a 3rd grader, that I'm a 40-year-old man that's bodying up an 8-year-old and showing him this. When's the last time that you had to check yourself, Eric? Like, that the culture that you lived in for 26 years isn't the culture that you live in right now.
Wow. Shoot, just about 3 weeks ago. Like, this is what I don't like in Atlanta. The drivers don't have no common courtesy, no respect or whatever. So this particular day, I was driving the normal speed on the highway, but I was going too slow for this one guy. He rolled by me and flicked me off. And I got a big red truck, right? Big red Silverado. And for a minute, I gunned it and I was on him. But then I thought, like, what are you doing? Because if you cause this dude to have an accident and something bad happens to him, you're going to prison. You're on your way to teach some young men right now anger management, but for a split second, you just lost it. So that's how I had to check myself. And I was able to talk to my students about it and let them know how they keep me grounded. Because I can't teach you anger management if I'm out here being angry myself. So it's just things like that to make me check myself. But road rage is real. Like, I don't like people cutting in front of me without their blinkers. I'll be like, "What are you doing?" Like, you know. And my girl be like, "Look it, stop it. People out here, they do have guns because you can carry guns out here. So it's like you don't have no gun and you, all right, you're right. But yeah, but outside of that, man, I rarely fall back into that because I'm so far removed from it.
Yeah.
And even my worst day, Kelly, I always say this, that my worst day out here in society trumps my best day in prison. So I love being home. I love being free and being able to roam around as I please, eat what I want, all of that. I love it. Those freedoms that people um, take for granted, even just walking outside and just taking in the fresh air, like it was a time where I didn't see no trees for years. It gets that serious sometime behind the walls where you somewhere where they don't have no trees, no grass. So I appreciate all of that.
Eric, what do you wish you can unlearn in life?
Oh, oh, I wish I could unlearn. I don't know, Kelly. That's a. I don't know. I'm sorry. I can't think of anything that I would like to unlearn because everything I've learned just prepared me for today. So I don't know. Wow. No. No. I'm sorry. I don't know.
No, that's good. It's good because the reason why I ask is because there's things that sometimes I don't want to see because you can't unsee it, right? And when I look at it, like one of my friends said, he went to work with the church and he was like, I wish I could unlearn what I saw. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, if you get behind the walls, sometimes you see the marketing happening. You see that there's 3 songs that go on. One that is, kind of leads you up. A second song that's super passionate and very energetic. And then a third song that pulls on your heartstrings. And I was like, oh man, I don't want to see that. I don't want to know that. I want to unlearn that because now when I go to church, they do the same thing every single time. And I'm like, I thought it was God, like just bringing it. And they were like, nope, it wasn't. And we planned that and we knew how you were going to feel. So that's the reason why I asked the question, but I love your answer. It's an honest answer. And what I want to tell you, Eric, is when you said the road rage thing and you smiled about it, I want you to know that, like, for me, it helps me because here's this guy in Eric, serves 26 years in prison and now turns his life around to shine light on other people, mentor people, be such a great, but I love the fact that you're still a human being and someone cutting you off in traffic makes you want to choke them a little bit. Like, cause I get there. Like I'm there, I get there occasionally, maybe a couple times a day. So I just love to be able to hear that, Eric. I just think it's awesome, man.
No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. Well, I'm human. I'm human. I'm not perfect, but every day I just strive to be the best version of myself that I can possibly become. I'm not human. No one's human and no one's perfect. So, you know.
Well, you're doing a phenomenal job, man, and I want to congratulate you on it. I started the podcast, and I told you this before, because I didn't want my kids to worship idols. When they see the Eric McKENITHs of the world that has overcome more in a small amount of time, you're a young man, but you've overcome more than like 10 lifetimes of other people. But I didn't want my kids to worship people like you. That when they looked at Eric and that he was doing the things and he was passionate, I didn't want him to worship idols. I wanted him to be inspired by icons like you. So that's why I started the podcast. Because I wanted Maddox and McKenna to see people like you and see that they're human beings. And sometimes they get mad in traffic and they have to have their lady let them know that, hey, just back off a little bit.
Yeah.
So what advice would you have for Maddox, who's 11, my son, and McKenna, who's 14 years old, my daughter? What advice would Uncle Eric, if you could refer to yourself that way, what advice would you have for both of them? And if you could use both of their names, Maddox and McKenna, it would be awesome.
Maddox, McKenna. One thing I would say is definitely respect your parents and trust your parents, because a lot of times we don't want to listen to our parents. We're like, you don't know, or Dad, you don't know, Mom, you don't know. But believe me when I say, parents really do know best, because my mom told me a lot of things when I was young that I wish I would have listened to back then. Not saying you guys are ever going to get into trouble that I got into. I doubt that very seriously because of your parents. I think your parents are definitely going to keep you grounded. But just, listen. Even if you don't want to listen, just act like you're listening. play the game. And then down the line, you'll realize that what your parents were telling you were actually on point,
Eric, I want you to do one last thing for me.
Yes, sir.
I want you to look into the camera as if it was your mom's eyes. And I want you to tell your mom what she has not heard enough from Eric, her son.
Marlene and Borden, I want you to know that you've done the best you can or could to raise me, and it was never your fault that I lived the life that I chose to live, because those are my decisions. It wasn't a lack of what you didn't do, and I know that you've done your best, and I love you for that. I love you for just being my rock throughout my incarceration. always there for me. You never wavered. I love you, and I'm going to always love you. And I'm so glad that God blessed us with this opportunity to be together again. And we're going to make the best of it. Whatever days, years you got left, I got left, we're going to make it work. I love you, Mom.
Eric, what do you want the world to know about prison?
Prison is not cool. You see things, people glorify, doing numbers. It is not cool. Prison is the worst. It is a physical death. You may not be dead mentally, or you may not be in the dirt, but you are in a box. And that's just as bad as being in the dirt.
Eric, I want to thank you so much, man, for being on the show. I want to have you on more because I want to hear about these mentees that you're working with. I want to hear about you having road rage, and I would like to hear how it works out for you later on after your wife or after your girlfriend takes care of you, after you telling her to be quiet. Eric, it is honestly, it's been a pleasure. For all of you out there listening, there's going to be links in the bio to be able to get a hold and connect with Eric, the Imperfect Gentleman, at the Imperfect Gentleman on Instagram. This man is an absolute inspiration. I'm going to force you to be my friend for the rest of your life, Mr. Eric. I already told you that, and that is a fact.
Yes, and that's mutual, Kelly, and I appreciate you having me on. And just, man, from the first time I met you, man, it's just been an honor. Like, at the church when you're here in Atlanta, I felt, and my lady felt, that the message was to me when you were speaking. I recognized you kept looking over at me. I received everything you were saying, brother. I love and respect your energy. And, man, thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be here on your show today.
Well, it's not going to be the last time, man. And I want to thank you. I want to thank all the listeners out there for helping us get in the top 1% globally, just by you guys sharing and you watching. Smash the subscribe button, put a review on, do that. Check out the sponsors, Mr. Chris Nagel, with Money School and Private Money Club, and also with Finley Volvo Cars of Las Vegas and Poppington's, because honestly, if it's not Poppington's, it's just popcorn. It's just basic. That's what my son said to me. So I want to thank you again, Eric. It has been my absolute pleasure to have you on the show, and I want to thank you, and thank your lady for allowing this to happen too. You guys are amazing, and you are officially off the hot seat.
Thank you.